What are you doing? The question is about docks. What are you
What
doing
are
to
you
fix
going
it?
to do to fix the dock problem? It's a big problem. People have to pay $1,650 before they buy a stick of lumber. It's affected the dock building industry severely, and it's paralyzed people who want to actually replace their dock, build a dock. If they've got something unsafe, it's not happening. What are you going to do to fix it? It's stuck at the OMB. It needs to be fixed.
Roman, you'll have a first response to that question. What are you going to do to fix it?
Well, we can't fix anything.
And when?
Pardon me?
And when?
Thank you.
When are we going to fix it? We're going to fix it when we get a decision from the OMB. Okay? Okay. When we get a decision from the OMB, we came up with a decent dock bylaw, and it was challenged by 6 different people to the OMB. There was the minimalists that didn't want it over 348 square feet. There was the people, the builders didn't want anything done, status quo, which you knew, which you heard it was status quo. You took it out of context, or people took it out of context in regards to you can make docks big enough for helicopter pads. That is not the intention. We weren't worried about helicopter pads. If you had a 300-foot frontage and the status quo of 15 feet from either side, projected sidelines, you could build a dock theoretically 270 feet wide and 60 feet out. That's big enough for a helicopter. When are we going to fix it? When we get the decision back. We can't please everybody, so we came up with a compromise. The minimalists wanted the same as the TSW, 348 square feet. The builders wanted status quo, so we came up with a number, and now it's being challenged. When we get the decision from the challenge back, we'll fix it.
Okay, Roman, thank you for that. I'm wondering if one of the councillors or both councillors, more too, would want to comment. If elected, what would they do and when? Colin or Dave?
Has it started to work yet? Or?
Yeah.
Oh. So at the end of the day, I'm not too familiar with how we would work to avoid having this, but at this point I know it is because the council has been working on this for years and years and years. And at the end of the day, what we need to do is choose 5 that we believe can work together to actually do that, because I'm tired of nothing being done.
Jim, Roman, and then Rick, very quickly. What and when?
What or when?
What and when?
Okay. I'm one of the 6 people who challenged this 8 pages of regulations on the docks. One of the reasons is, here's the Havelock one. Half a page. That's all you need. Duro Dummer. They didn't even change the bylaw they got now. They added 1 line to it. And, you know, this thing, you know, you have to be a Philadelphia lawyer, first of all, and there is a lawyer and 2 planners who have appealed this, along with us ordinary folks. But this thing now, the last we heard from the lawyer was that there were so many items against this bylaw that it was going to be a 2 to 3 week hearing at the OMB. That's as long as it took to do the Burley Bay project.
Jim, the question is, what are you going to do about it and when?
Well, if I get elected, the first thing I'm going to do is put a motion to council to repeal it. Take it off the table and write a simple document that makes sense and is easy for everybody to understand, and you're not involved in any 1,600. Look at this, like, you know, that's their planning document.
Okay, October 23rd is the when. Roman, another quick comment? Wrap up a supplementary comment?
Yeah, comment.
Okay.
In my last deputation just now, I forgot to mention the fact that it costs $1,500 to get a dock right now, because it had to go through a zoning amendment. We have to go through a zoning amendment because the bottom of the lake's not zoned. The bottom of the lake's not zoned because of the fact that it got appealed. We zoned the bottom of the lake. We had size limits on everything, and it got appealed. And that's why you can't build a dock without spending $1,500 on a site-specific zoning amendment. Just an addition.
Okay, okay, last comment on this issue. Well, I'm sure it'll come up again.
This is going to take me a minute. First of all, there's been no request for a $1,650 dock to county council, to township council. Docks are still being made. Docks are continuing to flow into all the lakes in North Corridor. Having said that, in terms of the dock appeal, you need to know that there's two pre-existing appeals with respect to docks. And if you would have attended the open house with respect to the Erie, where the chairperson came up from the OMB, she indicated to those two people that if you withdraw your appeals, this can go ahead. This appeal, the 6 people, 6 organizations appealing the dock, it can go ahead. She said, without you withdrawing those, I'm going to consider compulsory mediation. I'm going back to Toronto, but I do not believe I can recommend that to my superior, which means that it will go to a form of trial. So we are stymied. We have 2 pre-existing appeals, which are outstanding. And as told by the chair, we need to deal with those appeals before they can deal with the dock boathouse appeal. So in terms of when we're going to do it, there's constant questions from our lawyer to the chairperson of the OMB. And when she gets it going, or when those 2 pre-appeals are withdrawn, she can get it going, and we will do everything possible to move forward then.
Thank you. We're going to move on. It seems to me that the judge's ruling has resulted in many unintended consequences that have created a real mess. But at the end of the day, you're going to elect these people to lead on this issue and every other one we're discussing today. Your turn, sir.
Sandy Kilgore, Eels Lake. Most of my questions have been answered. I'm just very concerned that there has to be leadership with respect to resolving this type of an issue, and the timeliness of it, and bringing people together. And my question was going to be to Jim Whalen. He's really given a response in terms of how he. I really believe that this should have been resolved some time ago among the 6 appellants, and there is a process for that. But there's something here that simply, so it's no real question. I've already received it.
So, Sandy, you're stating in no uncertain terms that you are demanding action on this issue that's been outstanding far too long. Is that what I hear you saying?
Need a leader to basically bring the parties together to resolve this.
And you will vote for that leader who you think will do that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Charlie, may I answer that?
I'm not sure it's a question more than a statement.
I know, but he said, why haven't we mediated it? And I wanted to answer that.
Okay. You're next.
Folks, I took it on myself to get the 6 people who feel this together. We submitted our report to council of what we thought it should be. We've done that now on 3 occasions because the last time they said, you have to write the bylaw or we can't understand it. They received the last 2 submissions from us in closed session, and that's supposed to be mediation. So they sent and the lawyer came out and gave me this. See the small print on that? That's all the things that they say are wrong with our submission to them. So mediation, there wasn't any. We were supposed to get it, but we didn't get any. And that's why it's where it is, and that's why I would repeal the thing as soon as I could get on to council. Thank you very much.
Sir? Thank you.
My name is Bruce.
We're going to hear you, Bruce.
Can you hear me? My name is Bruce Meadows. I'm a full-time resident on Eels Lake. I know a lot of people don't know where Eels Lake is. But my question is to Colin. Colin, if you're successful in your bid to become our representative on council, will you be our voice on council? Because we haven't had a voice in 15 years. Is that right? Do you get voice?
So actually driving around and putting up signs around the township, that was the first time I made it all the way in on West Eels Lake Road South. So at this moment, whatever specific sort of case-by-case issues are going on at Eels Lake, I would like to see, and anyone else that would be interested in joining us, I'll put it on my Facebook page. And I would like to hear what issues are plaguing Eels Lake, and if you feel like you haven't been represented, how we can change that.
Thank you. We just want some
Colin?
recognition.
Sorry, Bruce, what was your follow-up comment?
Thank you. We'd just like some recognition.
Okay, you're welcome. Colin says, yes, ma'am. And then to Peter.
Hi, my name is Fiona Kohler. I've been in Apsley area for 34 years as a year-round resident, raising my family and now grandchildren. I'm going to direct this question to Mayor Woodcock. I've always been concerned with the safety standards on the Burley Street. As we spoke, the school, the children are always walking. So I was disappointed to hear that council did not approve the sidewalk construction at the last council session, and then hearing the cost today, I'm just optimistic and hoping that the new council will deal with this as soon as possible. It's another important issue. Would you be able to elaborate any further on this, Mayor Woodcock?
Thank you for the question. The proposal involved originally county designed for us a couple of crosswalks. That was going to be part of the project initially, and then in consultation in an open house, it was determined that maybe that's going to be too complicated, perhaps at least in the beginning. So the final proposal, in addition to the cement sidewalks and the barriers between the sidewalk and the hard curb to prevent people mounting the curb and hitting people, was yellow lights flashing at the corner of the Sager store to be a calming effect to cars coming down and coming around the corner. With that proposal, there was a 40-kilometer speed limit recommendation. I feel very strongly that something like this needs to be done. As indicated, those parking areas, the curbs we have at the moment, the boulevards are not for people. Those boulevards are for cars. We do not, according to the county, have any legal sidewalks. And you need to know with the accessibility legislation which has been approved and is coming, we have the responsibility in the future, and I can't tell you the year right now, but within the next 10 years, we've got to get it done whether we like it or not. And this is a perfect opportunity in my mind to get started and do it in concert with the county so that we're not digging the asphalt back up and putting in these curbs, as you see many municipalities do. They can't get their act together, so they do one thing, dig it up and put it back. The other thing is that our boulevards at the moment slope towards the road, which is perfect for people. I had it happen to be a little girl in a pink tricycle. It was an unbelievable scenario. Came right out, not on the road, but close enough over that soft curb to scare the life out of me, and that was about 4 years ago. And that is why this project is on my mind, and I feel very clearly, and I told, as part of my speech, I said, I will continue to work on it.
Thank you very much. I did attend the first public meeting that you held about that. Like I said, it's been a concern for many, many years.
That's your permission. Karen would like to comment on your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, because that recently came before the August 2nd Council, and there was a public session that happened, I believe it was just because it's not going ahead now doesn't mean it isn't going ahead. In conjunction with what's been going on, we've had other public meetings, and one of them's been the community plan. And that plan, as I mentioned in my opening statement, will facilitate development and investment in our community, and it will provide for cooperation between private and public. We all have a vested interest in making sure that the street is safe, certainly for our kids. I actually have kids that go to that school and walk the streets all the time, and I understand it. But I also heard, and And when I had the report here, all of the public comments that came back in that second meeting, and there was no clear consensus, and I think my other colleagues would agree with me as well. We had quite a debate about it at the last council meeting. People have said, we need parking, we don't need parking, kids only need to walk September to June, we need parking July and August. Was there a problem? We need a crosswalk, we don't need a crosswalk. And the amount of parking that would be eliminated, looking at things like the property across from the Legion that is municipally owned, why not designate that as a proper parking area? There's a lot of things that can be looked at, and unfortunately, because it wasn't included in our budget, it would have been an amendment to our budget, and the whole project cost would have been, with the added expense of 10% sort of overage, you'd be looking at nearly $400,000 that we would be pulling out of our general reserves right now. And for me, my concern was that we need to make sure that we're on the same page and that we're going to be able to enforce this and we're not creating more problems. So it's not off the books at all, or off, we will still continue to move forward, and I think the perfect opportunities through the community improvement plan.
I thought I had heard it was going to be under the 200,000 included.
That was for one particular section. There were 4 different sections of sidewalk.
Yeah, I was unable to attend that last meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. One of my themes as the president of the Jack Lake Association was the importance of cottagers buying local. And I get the best blueberry pie and strawberry rhubarb pie from the next questioner. And I buy locally with Peter. Peter, you're on. The absolutely artisan bakery. The best. It's the only commercial I'll do of the day.
And you're not getting a free pie. Peter Robinson for the Absey Country Bakery. My wife and I own that, and this is our 9th year in operation. Okay, to business. PSW. There are 3 letters that should terrify everybody here. Provincially significant wetland. It is damaging our property values and thus our local economy, certainly our tax base. I'll point it out very clearly. We cannot expect help from any other government. It's going to get harder and harder for people, for us to go cap in hand to any other level of government. So it's our tax base that's being hurt by provincially significant wetlands. My question, primarily to the candidates for mayor, what is your plan for coping with the damage?
Go well politically on that one, Carolyn, and then Rick.
Okay, a couple of things. Now you're specifically referring to, just if I may ask a question, when portions of your property are designated as a provincial, there's greater restrictions on what you can do. Is that your concern?
Yes. On ours, particularly because of the new designation for Brooks and Sheep's Bay wetland complex, watershed in the old firm language. But this is a large body of land that goes all the way north from Jack Lake and crosses over to 504 onto our property, and then could extend all the way to Palmer Road. And because of the new bylaw that's been attached that deals with wetland complexes, there is an immediate hold on any development. You get a tax study on pretty much any.
Okay. I'm not sure that is a new thing, because I know for the number of years that I've been on council, whenever you've been by a wetland or near a wetland, there are greater setbacks already, and an EIS is always required. That being said, you know what, I understand the impact in terms of limiting your property rights, but I also recognize the importance of maintaining the natural corridors, and nobody can deny that our wetlands are Mother Nature's septic. It's filtering everything out. And one of the things about North Kawartha, though, is that 60% of our lands are protected lands. When they talk about having water clear and pure, we have provincial parks, we have crown game preserves, we have unregulated crown lands. So the idea that somehow North Kawartha will be overdeveloped if we allow for people to build with rules around wetlands, I don't think that's a reasonable assumption to make, because North Kawartha is mostly protected. What little development we have currently exists in our small hamlets, in our rural areas, and around the few lakes. So I think there needs to be a balance, and I would still say you need an environmental impact study done, and there would be recommendations around how you can build and how you can build responsibly. I'm not sure about the costs. I don't know if everyone costs the same, and some might be more involved. I know for the bigger developments that were proposed, like down on Stony Lake. But I do think it is important that we recognize where they are and try to help our landowners work around them as much as possible.
Rick?
Designated wetlands, we've finally come to terms with the fact that they're part of an important part of our ecological system. So much depends upon wetlands. So my advice is that we're not going to do much about it. We're going to have to stay away from them. But if you believe that you have one that isn't appropriately designated, then you should make that known and appeal it.
May I supplement that?
Sure.
Okay. Just to make this a little bit clearer, I mean, we have, this spring we were told that we have 5 acres provincially significant wetland on our 48-acre property, right? It's smack in the middle of the property. Now, what they don't tell you is that there's a 120-meter setback from that 5 acres. Well, we did a little bit of math on that. And if you include the 5 acres plus the 120-meter setback from that, it's 38 acres of our property is now off limits without an ESI. And we've just had that land on us this week because now, because of the trailer that we've been arguing about for a year, and I got unanimous approval in principle to keep last month. This week we're told we need an ESI for it. As of now, to keep the $1,000 trailer that we put on the property, we're going to have to flush $7,000 before we even get approval. And that's just me, right? That's our property. There's hundreds of property owners that are affected exactly the same way. That's a chilling effect on property values. And thus the tax base. That has to be done.
I think the kind of needs to be repeated a little bit clearly. Thank you.
Hey.
By the way, I've asked Alex to crank up the air conditioning. It was getting a bit warm in here. It wasn't from the questioning. You're going to change that?
I'm shivering right now. Heather Rademacher, Chandos Lake. I've been on the lake for 43 years. I have a question I'd like to direct to Carolyn Amiot on why she voted as she did on the Milne Zone Amendment on June 19th, 2018, considering that the council meeting minutes show that there were 12 letters from residents opposing this application, and only Carolyn voted against denying the application. Now, you spoke, I've heard you say twice now, respect for rules. First of all, in your opening speech, and then in answer to this lady, you were talking about respect for rules and protecting the natural environment. So my question, I'm interested in your reasons for wanting to approve a huge garage built without obtaining proper building permits, and also to allow 2 dwelling units to be placed on the property.
Thank you, Heather. Carolyn?
Yes, thank you. I was actually expecting this question. I voted that way because I didn't feel that the decision that was made was based on sound planning rationale. The reasoning that was provided by my colleagues was that they believed that they should turn it down because at some point in the future, some other property owner might do something with those buildings that would contravene those bylaws at that time. That's speculation, and that's irresponsible planning rationale. That's why. It doesn't involve my personal feelings about what I think is good for that property or bad for that property. I have to put that aside. And I also base my decision on the planning or staff report that was brought forward was talking about converting buildings into bunkies and everything else. But all that aside, the motion that was put on the floor, as I said, I believe was irresponsible, and it was not sound planning rationale. And that's what I based my decision on.
It seemed to take them quite a while to come to a decision on how to handle it and the wording of that.
Yeah.
Document. So that was, I understand, thank you for your clarification. But it is a question regarding this structure.
If I may, I remember there was a recess called and the clerk was trying to help write it, and it was back and forth. And it's not to say that I don't appreciate and respect your letters of objection. I'm not saying that they're not valid, but at the end of the day, it's a tough position to be in when you're up there listening to the pros and cons, listening to the staff reports, looking at everything else, and then having to make a decision. And like I said, actually that gentleman just right down there, Tim Powell, used to say to me, it's got to be objective, it's got to be sound planning rationale, there can't be any emotion involved. And it's a hard thing sometimes because I do use my heart too, but at the end of the day, that's why I made that decision.
Okay, Heather?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Carolyn. Colin, I have a written question that's been presented to me by an individual who can't attend. His name is Bob Burns. He's a permanent resident property owner for more than 40 years. He goes on to say in his preamble that 3 of your election signs were placed on his property without permission. He tried to return them without success, and he discovered that you do not live in the ward. So my question to you, Colin, is this, and I quote from Bob Burns: why should I, as a Burley Anstruther ward resident, vote for a ward representative who doesn't actually live in my ward and is trying to hide that fact from his electors? R.A. Burns. Colin?
Well, to start, I wouldn't say I've hidden that fact from anyone that's come up and asked me where I live. I split time at the end of Knox Point Road, and then through the winter I do pay rent in order to have a spot on Highway 28 at my friend Jake's place. So I do pay rent in 2 separate locations, and I did choose to run under the one in Burley Anstruther. And that was not a requirement in order to be able to run. I could have run on the Knox Point one. So that decision was not made in order to circumvent any rules. As to why I'm running in Burley Anstruther, I've spent the past 5 years working in Burley Anstruther. I've spent all of my waking hours in Burley Anstruther, and just because I rest my head in Shandos doesn't mean that I'm not listening to the people of Burley Anstruther, if that's where I spend my time.
Thank you, Colin. Yes, sir.
My name's Ralph Trowsey, and I'm on Big Cedar Lake, and I've been there, well, not owning, but been there for over 30 years. I'm looking for clarification on a statement that's been made by 4 different candidates, and basically the statement was they're looking at moving structures back from the water line. My clarification is, are you actually meaning that you want to move existing structures back from the water line? Because if that's your intent, you've been smoking the weed that's soon to be legal.
And
I've had 4 candidates who made that statement. Now, is the intent of that statement means you want to put in regulations to move new builds back from the water line? Or are you actually stating that you want to move existing buildings back from the water line?
That would be a great gig for contractors, but I don't think that's the intent. Perhaps those who made that statement or...
Okay, so I will ask individually. So, Rick Woodcock.
Very quickly.
I'm happy to respond to that question. There is no intent to move everybody back from their current location just because, even though there's a lot of data that shows that living close to the water works hard against the quality of the water. Having said that, if you come in with an application to expand, then we will hopefully move you back if you're too close to the water. And for example, if you're within the first 30 feet, we've had a discussion about this already. The first 30 feet bylaw is we don't want you to expand within the first 30 feet. You can expand upon your footprint. You can't go left, you can't go right, you can't go back, you can't go up, but you have the right to expand or to rebuild on that footprint. Now, to clarify something else, just in case you're not clear, this is not a new bylaw. This bylaw came from the previous council in terms of the comprehensive zoning bylaw review in 1990, whatever it was. So this has not changed. But we are not proposing to enforce you to move back. But if you're 60 feet back or 50 feet back or 40 feet back, you come in and you want to put up a big house, a big cottage, and you've got room to move back, and we will encourage you to do that.
Second Councilor, Kelly. Second candidate, I should say.
Yes. I've said it a couple of times too, but like I said, everything's on a case-by-case basis. The reality is, today we have hundreds, if not thousands, of non-conforming legal structures. And sometimes we have applications come forward. Well, sometimes maybe it doesn't even come forward. There's a tear down, demolition, because the person has the ability and wants to move back 100 feet. They have the property to do it. But many times they're coming and they're asking for relief because it's not a cookie cutter approach. And I've always, as I said, sound planning rationale, but I've often said, I would much rather see somebody be allowed to build on their existing footprint with some modest expansion, modest relief granted, rather than have them move back and blast rock and cut down mature trees. We don't have tree cutting bylaw. We have nothing that bans lawns. And my fear is that we end up with lakes that are ringed with 100-foot setback cottages, with rolling green lawns down to hardened shores. I don't think that is better for the environment at all. My biggest thing when it comes to applications is making sure you're getting a new septic and it's going at least 100 feet back. So that's my position.
Third candidate.
It's Roman.
There's nothing stating that you have to move an existing building back over 30 foot.
See, and that's under my experience and everything I've looked at is virtually codes, bylaws, everything are unenforceable retroactively, right? So you can't put in a new code and then say, okay, you now have to move back, right? So, I mean, like I said, I just needed a little clarification on that statement.
Fourth candidate?
No, I don't remember who the fourth one was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you okay? You happy?
Good. Yeah.
My name is Jim Franks. I'm a retired captain with the Toronto Fire Services after 35 years. My question I'd like to direct to Rick Woodcock pertaining to a couple of comments that he made in his speech. I just want to say that I've had the opportunity to be present at several of the Northport Fire Department emergency services responses, and I just want to say that I am just thrilled to death with the level of professionalism, the hard work and the commitment that I've seen at several of the calls that I've been at, and I think we should all be very happy and feel very, very good about the service that we have from our fire department. Mr. Woodcock, with regards to when you first came into to council, the very early part of your term, you indicated that the fire department at that time had only 8 volunteers that were signed up for duty. I understand that has since increased to 34 or 35 firefighters. Part A of my question is, at that time in the fall of 2014, it just astounds me how a township can actually run a fire department with only 8 volunteers in place. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that that would actually meet the requirements of the Ontario Fire Protection and Prevention Act. And you also mentioned, I believe, that roughly $325,000 was spent early on in your term as well to update the level of 4 fire vehicles to bring them up to a safe standard that we can all feel comfortable with. So if you could address those 2 issues, I'd really appreciate that.
I need 15 minutes for this answer. Thank you for the question. You are correct that 8 people can't do it, but we could not, they could not as a department attract volunteers under the current situation. So we moved quickly, as I said, to put a program in place to attract firefighters who wanted to work as a volunteer firefighter. And then under the direction of Jesse Lamb, that was achieved probably within a 3 or 4 month period after we set him loose to do that. Under his tutelage, it's a great place to work, and it's a high quality department. The other issue is significant. There was $325,000 worth of repairs required immediately after we took over. We had a mini pumper rather, that did not meet annual pump performance. It was a dangerous machine, a dangerous pump that water pressure could not be controlled on 1 and 2 lines at one time. There was a pumper with an electric control panel that would shut down without notice. It did it to me twice and left me on the side of the road with no lights. Nothing running whatsoever after going down Highway 28, passing people at a significant speed with lights and sirens, and suddenly I'm dead on the side of the road. That was fixed for $17,000. And immediately it became obvious that the 2 tankers that we have were converted milk trucks, milk tanks on the back, which are not good for fire trucks. They got insulation, which shouldn't be there. They don't have baffles. They started to leak. And when the department inspected them, they found out that these tanks had been welded directly to the chassis, which is a no-no under any circumstance. So because of those issues that lingered prior to council taking over, we spent $325,000 to bring those vehicles to road standard.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Edith Moore, Big Cedar Lake. Everybody keeps saying how long I've been here. I've been here my whole life. I don't know specifically who to ask this question to, but there's been a lot said about lake quality, how clear the lakes are, the milfoil that's invading. What does the council do to support our lakes? Lakes are why we're all here.
We haven't heard from a couple. Dave, I'm going to ask you to find your voice on this one. You want to read us one more time?
Yeah, I wondered what council does to support our lakes in Corpus. Like the water, the milfoil in the invasive species, the water quality.
Dave's case, what he would do if elected.
Or what they do now. I don't even know what you guys do.
Anyone sitting on existing council? Okay. Colin?
Anybody?
Colin is Mike and then Jim.
So I know in the specific case of Eurasian water milfoil, there are weevils, little invisible bugs that can be put into the lakes that do specifically eat that weed and leave every other weed in the area. So that is one thing that can be done too.
I know what can be done. I asked him what council has done about our lakes.
Oh, council has done, sorry.
Or want to do.
Jim and then Carolyn.
Okay.
Yep.
Back in the 90s, we created septic inspections. And as a matter of fact, this lady down here running for mayor really did start at the bottom, because I hired her as a septic inspector.
Thanks for embarrassing her. Yeah, all of our, I know they came around and did septic inspections.
I'll tell you, that is the biggest thing that anybody could have done. I know on our lake, the first year we put it in, there were 23 new systems went in. Okay, that's 23 systems that weren't leaking into the lake, and so on and so forth. And we started it again. We got a grant and started it again. And I will say that this council has continued it on. And there is nothing more important than getting those septic systems. And as Carolyn mentioned a few minutes ago, if somebody comes in and they want to put an extension on or something, the first thing you have to do is get that septic back. And that's the best thing we can do for the lakes.
Anyone else on existing council want to respond to Edith, and what have you done? Yes, Sean?
Thank you. I think one of the, is this on?
Yeah, that's
okay. I think that one you're talking about. Certainly the expansion bylaw, the intent of it, when you argue numbers till the cows come home, the 0 to 30 feet was exactly the same as it was in the 2013 bylaw, which was in Mr. Whalen's term. There's no change to that. You couldn't expand, you couldn't do anything. But the problem with that is if you do want to make something bigger and you want to go back, there's a jump back to 100 feet. And frankly, it ends up always coming to council because nobody wants to go back that far.
Nobody has that property. You look at the property in our lake,
and most of
nobody
the
has
time
it.
you can't anyway. That's not practical.
You can't. There's no room.
So the issue is moving the building and moving some of the activity away from the lake, which helps. The part that's really missing, in my view, is the lack in our comprehensive zoning bylaws of putting in a buffer, a natural buffer. And even a buffer of 10 feet of natural stuff, not lawns. Lawns do not stop anything from going into the lake. But that should be in our bylaws. The buffers are a big deal because those roots and things catch contaminants before it reaches our lake. And so we've done some stuff. We're trying to do some stuff. With trying to get people some options, moving that, encouraging them to move back. As I said before in my little talk, you can't just force them back, as much as you'd like to against this case law against them. But you can convince them it's the best thing to save your pocketbook. I think that's the best way to go to work with them.
Okay.
I didn't get anything about in the lake yet.
You haven't what?
I haven't got any answers about what's been done in any lakes yet.
Okay. Well, keep pressing.
Okay, well, Karen.
You just demand an answer from somebody and stay there until you get it.
Yes, Karen, go ahead.
In terms of water quality protection, I mean, I agree with Jim. I mean, that's the single biggest thing that, that we've done, and North Portland really has set the bar in terms of doing septic maintenance program. But as far as dealing with invasive species, aquatic or otherwise, council has no policy. We have nothing. And you know what? It's something that we need to deal with. I've had a lot of people actually mention to me, talk about ticks, talk about climate change, you talk about things moving north, invasives. I mean, as a marina operator, I have my launch ramp posted, and I've actually turned the OPP away from our lake because they just came from Stony where there's zebra mussels, and I won't let them in our lake. So I really do think there's an education process that needs to happen, and I think council needs to be educated, and then we also need to provide that information to our residents. Things about don't transport firewood. If you see something like the hogweed or the poisonous arsenic, that kind of thing. These are the kind of things we're going to have to deal with because it's going to become more of an issue as the climate change continues. And so it's a good question, and it's an excellent point. One thing that I've always encouraged, and I would continue to encourage, is council meets regularly twice a month, and we have all kinds of different groups and organizations that come and make presentations, local service organizations, sometimes lake associations. I would encourage more of that to happen, because as long as we're all getting informed and educated, then we can actually deal with this problem.
Meet as an open invitation to attend council and continue to demand your answers. Okay? Thank you, Edith. Yes, sir. Okay, quickly, Rick, because we're running out of time.
I identified that in Muskoka, lake associations and representatives of lake associations work closely with council. So I went to a planning meeting in Muskoka and asked the question, why do you work or how do you work so closely with your lake associations and lake issues? And they said because the lake associations came and wanted to be part of what the township is doing, and I totally support that. I said this morning at the NORCLA meeting that I was at, that we need to orchestrate and organize our lake associations, maybe through NORCLA, to be a serious voice at the table. Now, our regulations and requirements as a township really require that we deal with bridges and roads and waste, garbage pickup, etc. We don't have a mandate really to spend money on the lakes. But in Muskoka, what they've done is started working closely together. The township lobbies for things that the lake associations require and need. It's a learning process. They work very closely together, and they support what I call is our industry, which is our lakes and the quality of our water. That's where I believe we should go. We should be actively involved with NORCLA, getting your ideas, getting your problems, getting your concerns, and working with you on those issues.
Doug, would you like to take a note of that, Edith, on your behalf, as chairman of NORCLA, and we'll be in touch.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Edith. Yes, sir.
Hello, Robert Pratt from Ensor Lake, and been here for quite a while in the area. And my question's kind of dealt with a bit here, but it was relating to the environment. All of you have said kind of the environment, our economic situation are driven by clean water and forests. Forests are connected to the water. This morning before this meeting, there was a North Portland Lake Sewer Association meeting. The discuss all those issues of water and problems that the lakes are having. And Weevils was discussed at length, and hardened surfaces, which we've had down on Answer. Other people have been putting in hardened walls from lawn to the edge.
Question, Robert?
So my quick question was,
Sorry,
why have all the representatives and councillors and people, did we only have one member, Rick, that turned up at that meeting to learn about our concerns for the lake associations? So, yeah.
The question is why only one elected representative showed up at the Northland meeting?
Yes.
Maybe only one was invited, I don't know.
I believe I did not invite members of council to the meeting.
So Robert, the answer is only one was elected, and maybe next year more will be.
So I guess only one had an interest enough to come
no,
uninvited.
in all fairness, only one maybe found out about it.
Yeah.
Because it was the Norfolk Stewart meeting.
Up here. Oh, sorry.
Moya Sutterby, I'm on Chandos Lake. Mayor Woodcock, while you explained why major costs and the need to build reserves required the tax increases, now that the reserves are up and the budget is under control, where do you see taxes going as we move forward?
I don't believe that I indicated that finances are under control. I'll start by talking about the increases we've had. And the increases really involve on the operating costs from the township. And the township increased costs of operation over the last 4 years have varied from about 2.8 to I think about 5.6. You've got to remember that 2% is now allocated in those years for the asset management plan. So when you take out the 2%, you've got very little left for operations. In fact, it's been very little more than the COLA, for example. So the big issue we have is that the asset management plan, which is now a requirement, was completed a year ago, and we have $58 million worth of assets under this asset management plan, and 4.5 million priced in 2017 are in a deficit. We need to come up with $4.7 million to address this asset management plan that will be required within a decade or whatever. 20%, I think because Doug or somebody mentioned that 20% of our roads are in poor, very poor condition. That's a significant part of that $58 million. So we have to be, I don't believe we can do, even though we put $1 million into the asset management plan, which was half of that $2 million we've added. Another $1 million went into general reserves. So we can seriously look at restricting the increasing budgets to the amount of COLA each year to allow the township to continue operating. But that 2% is still going to be there. The other thing I need to mention is that out of all of the townships within Peterborough, we are still, last council left us with the second lowest tax mill rate in the county. We still have the second lowest tax rate in the county. So we're doing well, but I don't want anybody to think that with this asset management plan that has to be provided for, that it's going to get any easier. But I would really hope that we could take the 2% each year, add the cost of COLA for operations for the township, and roll that up into the mill rate.
I suspect that taxes will be mentioned by one or more additional during your wrap-up session. Okay?
Thank you.
How old are you? I'm sorry, I keep it.
That's okay. My name's Alan Bird. I've been on Chandos Lake for just over 40 years. I'm not a former RBC executive nor a association president, because I understand those go hand in hand, apparently.
Like getting beat up.
My question actually has more in it, and it's for the two candidates running for mayor. And it has more to do with the how than the what, because we're going to face tons of challenges moving forward. So first, for Ms. Ambietti, you mentioned that you want to work with business. You're a business owner. Do you believe that the approach that you used with RBC was productive? And do you expect any results to come out of it? And then for Mayor Woodcock, who you and I haven't always agreed, but I do respect the way that we've disagreed. You've been a little bit more quiet in the issue. As our mayor, are you going to do anything about the bank, or are you moving forward? And I'll leave that to the two of you.
Carolyn?
Yeah, our efforts were not successful with RBC at all, because they're gone. And that was not without a lack of trying. That being said, I'm actually officially appointed to the two-person committee that Amanda Gray and I started up, which was the SOBs, Save Our Bank, and then it morphed into the Find Another Bank, the FAB team. We're still working on this. We drafted a proposal, a business case that we had sent out originally. I emailed right across the country after we licked our wounds from that public meeting. And we made really far inroads with Meridian Credit Union, but unfortunately it didn't fall through. And so we're in a situation now where we have a proposal that's been created. We have worked with the Greater Peterborough Economic Development Corporation to help us sort of tweak that so we can target specific banks and specific credit unions. By no means are we giving up. I'm certainly not giving up on this issue, because I've never been a quitter about anything. And I do believe it's important, but there's a couple of things that we do need to address, and that is what we do with that ATM. Currently, it is in that building until the lease runs out, which is in January. And at that point, we need to figure out, does it stay there? Because it certainly ties our hands. That's a valuable piece of downtown property that has a bank machine sitting there. We've talked about a couple of issues of perhaps relocating and getting the smart machine that they promised us, perhaps in this building, maybe at the library, trying to pick something that's central. But we're still actively pursuing another financial institution. Also sent proposals off, and I've been a real pain in our federal MP, Miriam Monsef's butt, about making changes to allow for postal banking again, because I think absolutely would be a fantastic pilot project for that. So, still working on it. I'm not sure if there was another part to your question about the bank, but it's not over.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for the question. I would like to say that I took a more business-like approach to that particular issue. Councillor, the township heard on a Thursday that the RBC was wanting to cancel or terminate the lease, and we undertook to find out why they wanted to do that. In the meantime, the story broke on the weekend that raised a lot of angst within the community, and people reacted in a way that I appreciate them coming to the war cry. That's not the way that I look at these particular issues. I did research. I contacted a credit union. I sent a letter to the president of RBC. But I was convinced, absolutely convinced, the banks had set this direction some time ago, that there would be no bricks and mortar in the future of RBC, CIBC, and Scotiabank. They were going electronic, and they were removing small banks that were not making a profit, even though they were making a huge profit. I took that, and I decided not to kick the ball around the backyard, because that wouldn't make any sense. But I can tell you, I was extremely excited last week when the vice president for all of Canada from RBC phoned me and said that his secretary would like to have a conference call with me. So that conference call was set up for yesterday morning. And speaking to the executive vice president, he gave us some commitments. He told me I could share this with you. He's committing to a larger smart ATM, which is there's a small and there's a large. He's committed to a large. He's open to ideas because I discussed with him that a bus service had been set up with some RBC money to take people to Lakefield, and that wasn't working well. He said, could we put a small group together to talk about it? And I said, well, I think that should be done by the committee that's set up to look at it under Carolyn's direction. We need to get back to him on that. And he said that I talked to him about the issues of locating that ATM in the current location. And he said that if we could get agreement, they would put this sophisticated ATM in that location and agree to move it in the event that we get a credit union. So we have those three commitments. We can work with the bank. He did say that what they are doing in many communities is bringing IT support to libraries so that there would be special equipment there so that people could go in and do transactions in the library to support the sophisticated ATM that people may not want to use. But I think this is good news. I don't think that the Royal Bank has abandoned us totally, but he was very understanding that if we get a credit union, then more power to us, and he will move the ATM.
Thank you. Al, are you happy with those responses? Yep. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm just going to raise this. Or take it. I had a totally different question, but that kind of threw me off there. Mayor Rick, if you can put that kind of effort into the bank issue at this point, the day before the all candidates election meeting, why couldn't this have happened in the initial stage? I find it kind of odd that the bank would have just called you out of the blue the day before this meeting. Like, that seems a little kind of convenient for you. But I don't want to sound cynical, but that seems extremely well timed and not so much a question in that case.
Accept your observation. What was your question?
My original question, yes. Sorry. I'm not much of a public speaker, so I'm probably going to stammer quite a bit here. Mayor Rick, people know you as you're the former vice president of the Chandos Lake Association. You're backed by the association. You have members of the association working on your re-election committee. Being a politics junkie myself, I read the yearbook, I read the AGM minutes when they come out. I know some of their plans or things they'd like to see done. Like septic inspections, they've made the statement that visual inspections aren't good enough. But they want to see the inside of the tanks, sort of like a Halliburton program where they crack the lid, they hand you a bill for $180 and they pump the tank out. The suggestion that they have where they want to pre-review zoning amendments for the lake before it even gets to council so that they can suggest to council whether or not they should approve or deny it. Is this something that you intend to oppose them on, given your past record of standing with them and supporting their initiatives, or are we going to basically expect that they're going to, be calling the shots on things like zoning applications in future?
Mr. Wright, correct?
Yes.
I was not the vice president of Chandos Lake Association, but having said that, I was treasurer for some period of time.
My apologies.
I was proud to be that, and I retired from that position the moment I ran for mayor. Having said that, if you go back to what we discussed a minute ago, I believe that we need to be working very closely with all the lake associations, and I will definitely not be a puppet to any of those lake associations. So it's not. I am not driven by the Chandos Lake Association at all when it comes to my responsibilities and activities as mayor. Was there another part to your question? Inside septics, do you want me to talk about that?
If you'd like to, certainly.
The septic program is going well. We're finishing phase 1. the council has to now, or the council of the day needs to, in the future, needs to design phase 2, and that will happen as time progresses over the next 6 months. And if you look at what is going on elsewhere, we may get to the point of forcing people to open tanks. What we're doing at the moment is classifying the inspections into no risk, low risk, medium risk, and high risk. So if you get to the medium or high risk category, you may be asked to open tank, and yes, you probably will. And I can't predict what council's going to do, but yes, you'll probably be asked to pay for it. This is a very critical issue, I think, to all lakes and all lake associations. And I will talk about for a moment Trout Lake, which is the feeder lake for the water for North Bay. You have to have your tank inspected every 2 years. You have to have it pumped. And if you do not submit the receipt of that pumping and the report with your property taxes, they don't accept your property taxes. I don't see us going that far, but I think that this issue is serious enough. I mean, the inspectors that we have, the girls that go around, come across people that they've had a cottage for 30 years. They don't even know where their tank is. So this is not a good scenario. So I take it seriously, and I think all cottage associations take it seriously. And I think we as a township should.
Not just speaking of people on lakes, though. There's a lot of people in this township who don't just live on the water, and I understand the water quality issues. When your septic is 20 feet away from the lake, but some of us are several miles away from the lake, and that's kind of what I'm speaking to.
We're doing everything. We're doing every household in North Portland. And just because they're not on lakes, it's just as important. We have come across septic tanks that are dangerously close to the neighbor's well. Not a good scenario. We're dealing with those issues.
Mr. Reed, thank you. We've got 2 more questions before we have the candidates give their 2-minute wrap-up. Mr. Sanders.
All right, so my question is about business.
Did your daughter get bored with this?
Yeah, right, so local business, so we own a local business, so we know just as much as anyone else the importance of shopping local. If we don't get our local hardware supplies at local hardware, we go to Home Depot, we can expect a local hardware store won't exist down the road. Same thing with all businesses. So I'm just wondering, just briefly, if we could get a quick response from everybody, what you're going to main priorities are for supporting local businesses, how you intend to support local businesses over the next few years in council.
Do you just want to answer that, or do you want to do that in a wrap-up? Anybody?
Sure, yeah, it was just a general question about in what way anybody running for council was planning on supporting local business. Obviously, there's a lot more to support than just shopping at a business. There's other ways you can support a business. Just wondering what your intentions are for supporting local business, how important that is.
I'll just answer it really quickly. As I mentioned before, we started, we're going to take this community improvement plan. The minute we get approval to have areas designated, that opens up the door for us for grants, for loans, for infrastructure to coordinate streetscaping, facades, all that kind of stuff. I've talked with our junior planner at length about some of the things that we can do to think outside the box. Maybe, you know what, North Portland says, hey, we're open for business for the next 2 years. Local businesses, we're going to reduce or eliminate application fees so businesses can move forward. I think there's a number of things within that program that we'll be able to deal with. Something else I would love to do is bring back the community planning committee that I had established not this term, but last term. On economic development committee. It was really effective in the short term that it was here, and I would love to see something like that again. Maybe it's not council though, maybe it's somebody else who wants to do something like that.
Okay, I'm going to ask Doug one more and then call it.
Just a note, when you look at real economic drivers from other communities, you go to the council for these conferences and things, you find out that almost always, it's not driven by a township. It's driven by business associations. And it would be very useful, I think, for council to understand to deal with a business association of a group of businesses. I really do think it would help a lot.
So we are a township of many, many small businesses rather than having one major industry. So I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be hiring and attracting talent to be working at your business. So what I would like to see is as far as a low cost, high effectiveness sort of strategy would be the township seasonally, once before the summer, in order to help cottaging residents find jobs here through the summer, and once before the winter to help we have a seasonal unemployment problem here. For about 5 or 6 months of the year, we have lots of people drawing from EI. What I would like to see is the township post a job fair right here and invite any of the local contractors, any of the local businesses twice a year to come accept applications.
Okay, we promised you a 4:30 adjournment, and what I'm going to suggest is 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. Throw them out. I'll make a note of them, and we'll deal with them in bulk, with your permission.
Thank you.
It's I think it's important to hear the wrap up from the candidates, so you leave here knowing who you want to vote for.
Yeah, my name's Peter Watson. I'm president of the Association of Stony Lake Cottages. I have a question regarding, there's been a lot of talk and comment about responsible development, lake quality, all kinds of environmental issues. And I have a specific question for Carolyn, Jim, and Tim Powell, regarding responsible development and how they felt in supporting the Friends of Fraser, or the Fraser Development through Verde Bay Corporation, how they felt in any way that represented responsible development. And to answer to their approach or their thoughts, and the thoughts of the rest of the council or potential council on the current Pilgrim's Rest area that's being developed in Upper Stony, which is again quite a number of properties that are going to be put in, and docking that will be done, and boat traffic, and again, water quality, septic, water systems, all of those issues, and if they feel that's any different than Fraser by any stretch.
Thank you, Peter. I'll note that. Next, ma'am.
My name is Mary Brown, and I would like to know from each councillor on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it does not exist as a problem, 10 being we should all get shovels and start working now. What is your opinion on residential development in this area, mixed use development, and industrial areas going forward?
What was your scale, 1 to 10?
1 being it is not an issue, and 10 being we should get shovels and start building right now.
You only want a number, not a preamble.
I just want a number so I know who to target later.
8. 10. 7.5. 7.5. 7. Roman? 8.
Mary, I didn't hear all the pieces. Residential, I give it a 9. We got 2 other categories.
Mixed use residential and industrial.
9 for the second one. Industrial is a difficult issue for our community in terms of location, type of industry. But I can tell you I would really welcome an industrial base for contribution to our property taxes, which would totally change the scenario in terms of listening to the radio the other day for Peterborough, and their income from industry was something like $10 million, $12 million a year from industry. Imagine what that moving in that direction, what type of what could come out of that. Having said that, without water and sewers, the industry is going to be very difficult.
The consensus was about 7.996.
So I expect to see all of you at an economic development meeting that I set up and I'll send you invitation to.
Okay, Mary, we got you. They look for that invitation. Yes, sir. 2 more questions?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief. It's for Carolyn Amiot. I've watched your YouTube video twice. I listened to you today. I looked at your literature, and you talk about the biggest resource as the people, which I think people are important, but I'm wondering if you're losing sight of what is even more important. And I think our biggest asset is our lakes. And if we don't protect this asset, we will see a major change in our demographics. We're already seeing lakes north of here where the algae has crept in and the lake is dead, cottage values go down. And I don't understand why you wouldn't have more emphasis on the environment, protecting the lakes, working with lake associations in protecting this asset. Because the perception I think a lot of us have is that you're taking more of a laissez-faire approach and allowing cottagers to get what they want rather than doing what is in the best interest of the lake.
Carolyn's going to address that in her wrap-up. It's an arbitrary decision, Carolyn, by the moderator to give you some time. Yes?
My name is Rick Price. I live in Astley on Highway 28. I'm not a lakefront owner, but I'm actually very interested in the shortness of housing in this area, and I'm wondering what the council, and that's every one of you that's in council, that's running for council, is going to do about tiny homes.
Okay, well, they've got a lot to cover in their 2-minute wrap-up, and we're going to do that. As they were thinking about that, I just have two. One's an unsolicited comment from my daughter. I'll share with you. There's been this discussion on Burley Street. My daughter is an advanced care paramedic in Peel Region. Her partner Dave is a police officer in Peel. They both work in Brampton. Lots of issues to deal with there. They say when they come to Burley, Dave, this police officer, said, if I was on traffic duty on this street for a day, I could cover your municipal budget. He says, are these friends of my daughter? Dad, are these friends of yours driving around here like this? And the speed on Highway 28 is another issue, but that's a digression. And lastly, for me, two final comments to your point, Al. In fairness, as a Royal Bank shareholder and pensioner, I must tell you that the work the committee did by Carolyn on this bank closure, and I can't speak to the timing of the call to Rick, but it doesn't surprise me that Kurt Duchek, who worked for me for 10 years, would do that. This went to most senior levels of RBC, and the discussion around whether or not to close or not, or how to do it, has resulted in policy and implementation and process changes across the country. So I want you to be assured, while the outcome meant that the Royal Bank left, at least in a physical presence, the voices were heard in the most senior levels of that organization. So take that for what it's worth. My final comment is this, and I often quote Maya Angelou as I wrap up a meeting such as this. And she said, and I'm paraphrasing here, people may forget what you say, people may forget what you do, but people will never ever forget how you make them feel. I would say to each and every one of you, if I can make eye contact with every one of you, that your presence here today makes me, as a Canadian interested in the democratic process, feel very proud. And I can assure you it makes every candidate feel very special that you would take the time to come out and listen to them. So you may forget what they say or what they do, but you will not forget. No one will forget how you make them feel in whatever interactions you have in that. So I'm going to go down the table from stage right to left, starting with Carolyn. You've got 2 minutes, and I'm going to be mercifully on your case if you go over, if you don't mind.
If I could just speak to the one comment that was made by Mr. Telka, just because I believe the greatest asset of our community is our people does not mean I don't place value and importance on the natural resources or anything else here. It all connects us. However, I think that's an inaccurate assumption to make about my personal viewpoints. And I really do. Every single one of you here today is the most important part of this community. So, I have a couple of things that I want to say. Oh, absolutely.
Maybe I'm going to ask them to take the podium so you can see the whites in their eyes.
I think in my opening statement I identified many reasons why I'm running for mayor. But if I had to sum it up in one sentence, I'm going to back up. It's because I'm concerned about the direction in which we are headed. It's no secret that I have struggled with this past term of council. At the beginning, I kept an open mind and honestly believed that having fresh blood and new ideas would be beneficial as long as we were a team sharing the common goal of acting in our community's best interest. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. Halfway through our first year, I saw how quickly things were going off the rails, and at one point, I actually considered giving up. However, I'm not a quitter. I'm a positive person by nature, and I always try to find the good in everything. When I look back, I can see that my struggles with this council just made me work harder to be a better elected representative. I got to know the rules of procedure even more and use them. I made sure I asked for recorded votes. I called out loudly against the manipulations and pressures being exerted on council by a vocal few, and some interest groups with different agendas. I spoke up when I witnessed people's rights to due process and fair, unbiased decision-making being compromised at public hearings for planning applications. I made sure that every vote I cast for planning decisions was based on sound planning. I stood up for staff when I saw that they were being treated unfairly. I submitted many of my comments and concerns in writing to ensure that they became a part of the municipal record. This is how my idea of video recording council meetings became a notice of motion in 2016. The closure of our bank was the final straw for me. When I heard the news via the grapevine, I immediately contacted the mayor and CAO. I figured it was baseless gossip. I was shocked to learn that the township had received lease termination notice a week before, and nothing was said to council, no immediate contact was made to RBC, and there was no coordinated effort to inform the community until I asked, what the heck is going on? I was so upset and disappointed. I didn't think I could feel any worse until the bank closure meeting. I was devastated by the way our community was treated, and it felt like we were just being thrown under the bus. I knew then I was going to run for mayor. 4 years ago, I was not ready to take this step. However, with the challenges that I have faced over the last term, and the fact that all of my colleagues are running for their same positions, it feels like there's no choice for me. I cannot go through another 4 years of the same. That is what I meant by saying I'm at a crossroads. I either run for mayor and work with all of you to build positive change and bring success to North Kawartha, or my years of serving this community as an elected official will end on October 22nd. This is a huge leap of faith for me. I'm asking all of you to believe in me because I believe in you. I'm taking that step off that cliff, and I'm trusting that I will land on both feet in the place I'm meant to be. Thank you.
I definitely won't take the full 2 minutes. I think we've all been here long enough. But I'd like to echo Charlie's sentiment about thanking everyone for coming out here, because not only is this event not possible without you guys here, but if nobody cares, there's no real sense in having a council anyway. And also Peter and Rick, if you'd like to stay around, I'd like to answer your questions about Pilgrim's Rest and the tiny homes when we get a chance. Have a good night, and thank you again, everyone.
Talked a lot about cooperation and teamwork with the council staff, township councilors, provincial and federal levels of government. I provided you with the concrete examples of what we accomplished during my term as mayor and deputy reeve before forming these bonds. I have to do this. My wife will be mad at me, but I have to do this. A quick summary of my accomplishments, or our accomplishments. A renovated new medical center, new North Kawartha Community Center, a new fire hall on 28, a new library in Ashley, a new library in Woodview, a new ambulance station, a new municipal building, a new works garage, a new permanent home for the food bank, a new helicopter pad which is used by emergency services, the OPP, MNR, Ontario Parks, and private helicopters, an expanded and improved fire hall down in Woodview. A very important one is our plan to upgrade the roads. We accomplished all of that with no debt, no mortgage or lien on any building or vehicle. And I hate to correct you, Mr. Mayor, but we left the township with the lowest tax rate in Peterborough County. During this campaign, I've been consistently asked, what has this council accomplished, this current council? I heard very little today. Despite increased taxes of 28%, it's hard to figure out where all the money went. Other than we know the lawyers and planners must be very happy with us, because I hear through the grapevine that it's approaching $600,000 during their term spent on lawyers and planners. Yes, during my term as mayor, our council also had OMB appeals, but we mediated them, and reasonable settlements were met to avoid expensive legal and planning fees at those OMB hearings. This great facility we're in today was funded by 3 provincial and federal grants. It's the envy of every town in Ontario. And a monument to the many accomplishments of our team during my term as mayor, it's time to think big again. Let's get North Royal back on track.
Well, I haven't got too much to say. Referring to Caroline's submission on that, to be quite honest, I don't think I ever really left the job when I did retire. One of the reasons why I'm running is because I've had a lot of concerns voiced to me and a lot of phone calls in respect to planning issues. In fact, a lot of people in that didn't understand the concept and that of why they failed with something or why something that they objected to was approved. I can't answer that question, but I do think that I can make a difference in that. I do have some knowledge, and I'd be happy to share that with the population of the township if I am elected. The environments of the lake, very, very important. The municipalities have not normally been involved with direct injection of money. It's always been up to the lake associations. That is always where the most controls are. Townships could place more controls on lakes. That would be site plan control, which was brought up a number of years ago, but nobody was happy with that because they didn't want to go through council every time they wanted to obtain a building permit. Another one in that would be a tree removal bylaw, which again in that would probably be some form of site plan control. The 30-foot non-touch zone that was established in bylaw 6696 was supposed to be a buffer zone or a vegetation zone in that where buildings could not be located and people would take care of it. And again in that, buildings aren't allowed. That still holds true today. If you want to build closer than you are, you would require an official plan amendment as well as a zoning bylaw amendment. I believe one person was successful with that in the last 15 or 16 years. The other aspect in that is that we can't force people in that to take care of the 30-foot buffer. That in itself in that is reliant on the owners of the property. And that's where cottage associations come in. They can sell things in that to their members where they would look on it if the municipality was trying to do something through bylaws, interference, or tell them what they could and couldn't do with their property. I take a look at some lakes and they've got very strong environmental councils. Other lakes, but I am saying
that is, we now have a significant number of real estate agents in town. And they've taken up the buildings that the small businesses might have incorporated and so forth. Now, I'm not being negative on that. I'm telling you, we've seen a change because of what's happening out on the lakes. The real estate people have seen that, hey, there's money to be made in Apsley, but it's not selling things in a store, it's selling things on a lake. So our community has changed, it's going to continue to change, we won't be able to stop it. However, I do agree with Mary Brown, we need an economic development committee. I tried to get one going on council, it was turned down. I'm not blaming council, but it annoyed me because I think an economic development committee would give us better direction. Right now, without that and community's input, it's not there. Also, I lobbied hard for committees in general. It wasn't accepted. So did the mayor. It wasn't accepted. We need committees to work with people so that we get your input, direct input, and then we go to council. I really admire Andrew Waddell. I think he's one of the most enlightened builders up here. He is doing things ahead of the time that we're thinking about. He is building smaller units for aging people to move into, or literally anybody. But he's doing the thinking and he's doing the job. He's getting it done. Now, if I stay on council, well, I am on council. Yeah, I want to see that kind of thing continue. Okay? Thank you.
experience working with you two. We all know that lakes are important. We got to keep them clean. We need to be fiscally responsible. We talk about lakes and cottagers and all that. I think the cottagers are our economy. But we're forgetting about the residents too. There's 2,250 residents that we should be concerned of. They need voice and counsel also. They need services. They need businesses to stay here, community care, food bank. So let's not forget the residents. Thank you very much. I can't wait to be on council here.
Just a few items. We talked about a lot of things today. Burley Street. I didn't like the Burley Street plan because it wasn't complete. It didn't deal with private parking, and I was concerned with the unintended consequences of what was going to happen when you removed approximately 190 parking spaces. I felt what was the result could have been more dangerous than what we got now. However, that we still have to keep working together to fix the problem. Pilgrim's Rest, I was the one that made the motion against Burley Bay. I looked at Pilgrim's Rest at Woodview, and I don't like it. Frankly, I'm uncomfortable with it. But I could change my mind, but so far, this is very preliminary, but it just seems like a lot of stuff for the lake. I knew Mr. Will, and I sat in the audience for his entire terms, and I know what he did, and I know what he didn't do. Banks. We got accused of not doing anything about banks. Within 2 hours of me I didn't post anything on a hydro pole. I didn't call in the public. I didn't jump into Facebook. But within 2 hours of finding out the bank was leaving, I talked to my friend of 40 years who is a banker and owns a credit union branch to find out what the real facts were and what they needed to. There's different ways people react. It doesn't always in the public. I also called Kevin Monaghan to find out what happened to TD Bank that moved out 3 years ago, even though they had over 200 new homes going in there in the next 2 years. I wanted to find out what the facts were. We are on the right track, but it's a whole new world, completely new world than what it was 4 years ago. Less funding, well, probably a lot less funding, unfortunately. Far more legislation and litigation through Bill 139 and Bill 68. But we got to work together. We got to get through this. We have to make it sustainable. Thank you very much for your attention.
Folks, it's been about 25 years since I was on council before, and I hear the same things over and over again. We've got to keep our water clean. We can't have our setbacks encroaching on our waters and stuff like that. I hear you loud and clear, and if I should be elected again, I'll try my darndest to keep the waters clear, because the cottage industry that we have, that's a backbone of our community. Without you folks with some money, we're dead in that water. So I'm asking your support for this turnaround, and I'll work my darndest for you. Thank you very much.
I sincerely thank all of you for being here. This is not an easy thing to do, either being in the audience or being up here, so thank you for participating. I wanted to do a quick check on the various rates that are going around for tax increases. Boggle my mind in terms of I've heard everything from 15% to 30%. So I did a quick check with a neighbor who owns a house at $600,000 to $700,000. He found out from me that his 2014 tax rate was $4,035. His new tax rate is $4,462, $327 difference, 10.6% increase, 2.1% a year. Remember, that 2.1% is made up of, that's the township, the county, and the school board. I'm not going to be the one to try and explain the calculation for me for the tax mill rate increase, but I think we've done pretty well on taxes. Jim, the joke of the day is you are going to be, that's not a joke that you're going to be on council. The joke of the day is that you forgot you were going to be on council. So, well done. Good stuff. Gene Telka, people and lakes are very important. Without all of the people in North Kawartha, without our lakes, I don't think we would have much to work with. Rick, housing, I think housing is something we need to take a serious look at. We haven't spent any time on it, to the best of my knowledge, and we have to do some sites. We need to take a look at some sites to find out where some housing would work. Pilgrim's Rest, I need to know a lot more about that, going from a trailer park to 30 houses, 87 trailers to 30 houses that are all with new septic tanks and large lots and whatnot. I need to know more, so I will make that decision when it gets to the point that we get there. Doug, you're right, it is a whole new world. Many things have changed in 4 years. But let me just, my official comment. I commit to you that I will continue to give the role of mayor my full attention and deep commitment. On your behalf, I am pleased to continue to address the many important issues and challenges that we do face. I do note, however, that this is a full-time job, and you got to be ready to let everything else go. Not only are you mayor, you're also a councillor with county council, and I had 54 meetings in the last 12 months in Peterborough with avenues of the county in terms of Board of Health, in terms of land division, and the list goes on. And all of this, I wish to close by thanking the many staff members of the township who work diligently for us and you in all seasons to both keep us safe and move our township forward. And a personal thanks to the roads department for the wonderful job they did in their daily work on Chandos Beach. Thank you very much. I would obviously appreciate your vote when the time comes, but you make the best decision in this wonderful democracy that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, bring closure in 1 minute. I have a request of you, and that is simply this. Between now and October 22nd, I want you to find a mirror in your house, cottage, wherever. Look in your eyes and find your heart, your soul, and your spirit, and say, I am going to vote for name because. Okay? I'm going to vote for because. And be convinced in your heart and in your head of that decision you're about to make. Because if you don't vote, don't come complaining to council, okay? Encourage your neighbors to do it. And lastly, when I headed the Royal Banks operations in Manitoba in the early 90s, I had the great pleasure of meeting a Cree elder from the Paw. The greatest life lesson she gave me was this: Mr. Coffey, listen or your tongue will cause you to become deaf. Listen or your tongue will cause you to become deaf. I'm going to take that great Cree elder's advice and say, all of you, thanks for being here. When you leave here today, please go in peace. Thank you, Doug.
Just don't go yet, please. It's pouring rain. I want to thank Charlie for a great job in moderating. Three things. If you haven't, and I keep saying this all the time, subscribe to North Kawartha email on their website so that everything that is going on in North Kawartha Township, you will get emails every week, every day. That's important. And it's very important with the election because it's telling you the details of making sure you're on the voters list and giving you a link to a very neat video on how the telephone or internet voting is going to take place. I watched the video. It's excellent. And you'll get something in the mail, you'll get a pin, and either using your touch-tone phone or going to the internet, you'll mark your ballot, and it works very smoothly. And finally, this is going to be huge, getting the vote out, especially with the smaller lake cottage community. That's my biggest concern. is that they won't vote. So please encourage it with your neighbors, as Charlie said, and make sure you vote. Try and look at the material with the candidates and talk it up amongst your community. But please make sure you vote. Thank you, and thanks for coming.